Hello and welcome to On Purpose Astrology. This is the second video about the power degrees. The first one was about the importance of the 29th degree of the signs of the zodiac and the 0 degree of the signs of the zodiac, the beginning and the end of each sign, and how they are very important this year due to the movements of the outer planets moving to the 29 degrees, that critical urgent degrees, and then the new fresh start 0 degree of the next sign. This second video, part 2, is about the eclipses. So in any year, the degrees the degrees of the zodiac that the eclipses fall under become very important. They become important in their own right when there's in the weeks and months after an eclipse, but also those degrees remain potent as other planets move over them throughout time. So an eclipse is basically, at its most simplest, it is a supercharged lunation. So a solar eclipse is an eclipsed new moon. Now, it has a longer shelf life than a normal new moon, which we have a new moon, of course, every month, every sort of 28, 29 days. But an eclipse new moon, as I said, has a longer shelf life. It can have influence for the months ahead, and the degrees in which it fell can sometimes have influence for years to come. The things that were set in motion, for example, under a new moon eclipse, under a solar eclipse, can have ramifications down the line, things that are set in motion, unfolding over time. And I'm going to show that with a case study. It's the easiest way really to explain it, to show it with a case study. Before I do that, a lunar eclipse, it's an eclipse, it's a supercharged full moon. Full moons, as we know, new moons are about planning and seeding and starting and setting things in motion. Full moons are about fulfillment, things coming to a peak. Under an eclipse full moon, there's that moment of darkness where there's that uncertainty. Whatever we created, what has come to a peak, and then things become clear, and there's a change of direction. So let's look at this case study to show you how eclipses, as they happen, can have an effect on life events, or more accurately, they reflect life events. Because, it's my belief that we are in energetic synchronicity with the planets. They reflect rather than, I don't like this language, and it's really easy to slip into. I do it all the time, but this language in astrology, the planets are doing this to me. No, we are co-creating with the planet. We are using the energy, the vibrational energy of all the energies around us. So let's have a look at this case study. Now, this gentleman probably needs little or no introduction. Prince Harry. Prince Harry is the second son of the current King of Great Britain and the Commonwealth, King Charles III. He's the second son. He is now, this chart is for the solar eclipse on the 9th of March 2016, just a few months before he met Meghan Markle for the first time. Meghan Markle, as we know, went on to become his wife, and his life changed. Harry's life changed as he became a husband and a father, moved away from the royal family, resigned his royal duties, and started a new independent life in the USA with his new family, his wife and his children. So this solar eclipse here on the 9th of March, not that long before he met Meghan Markle, is really important. 9th of March 2016, there was a solar eclipse opposite his sun. So if you look at the chart here, you will see just short of 19 degrees of Pisces falling in his second house. We see that solar eclipse, that sun and moon, that union of the sun and moon, traditionally the feminine and the masculine energies, that coming together in relationship there opposite his sun. So something's going to happen. The opposition, of course, and any opposition and an eclipsed full moon, as well as a normal full moon, has something to say about relationships. He started a new relationships. We can say, oh, well, he didn't meet her on 9th of March 2016 on the day of the eclipse. Of course not. These eclipses, they tend to unfold. If you follow the eclipse patterns in your chart and in world events, things tend to evolve over time. So it's no surprise that the meeting with Meghan Markle happened a few months later, particularly when you realize, when you look at July 2016 for Harry, transiting Jupiter, which here is exactly opposite the solar eclipse, so a powerful part of that solar eclipse, that transiting Jupiter was actually conjunct his sun when he met Meghan Markle. When they went on their first date, he was set up as a blind date by a friend, is how the story goes, how he tells the story. Jupiter, of course, is about optimism, growth, expansion, having a good time, good luck for the future, hopes for the future. So he must have felt very lucky to have met her, and I think it was a relationship that developed pretty quickly. What you'll also see in this chart is on the time of that eclipse, the 9th of March 2016, Pluto there in Capricorn, transiting Pluto, was in his first house, very close to his ascendant, still really conjunct his ascendant. And as we go through when we look at two other eclipses in 2016, we'll see that Pluto going backwards, retrograding even closer to his ascendant. So Pluto on the ascendant, radical transformation of identity. So remember, this solar eclipse is a super powerful, on his sun, opposite his sun, about relationships, is a super powerful indicator of a seeding of a massive life transformation in his identity. At the most basic level, it's that identity of being a single man. He was a very popular royal. He had lots of girlfriends, and he was seen as the party guy. Getting into a serious relationship, which led to him becoming a married man and a father. So just on that level alone, that massive change of identity, a different life, a new life as well in a foreign country. You'll see in his 9th house, his chart is in the middle here in the center, and then the eclipse chart around the outside. You'll see that he has Pluto in the 9th house in his chart, which could have something to say about making massive changes, massive transformational changes by going abroad. And we saw that happen when he moved to the US. But this is from the first time he met Meghan, very early days, and so much unfolded after this period. So let's look at the next chart. This is for 1st of September 2016. This is when he'd been dating Meghan for a few months, and his relationship was outed in the press, in the UK, probably in the US as well, but definitely in the UK. So we can see here another solar eclipse. The eclipse here is at 9 degrees of Virgo. It is falling on his Mercury at 5 degrees of Virgo, conjunct. I tend to use oppositions and conjunctions as I find that they are the most powerful when you are looking at eclipses in your own chart, the charts of countries, etc. Look for the oppositions and the conjunctions of the eclipse to a point or a planet in your chart, or in the chart you're looking at, because these are the most powerful ones. But we don't ignore obviously the rest of the chart, what else has happened in the transits. I've already spoken about the Pluto transit and Jupiter transit for the last eclipse. But it's Mercury here that is highlighted. His natal Mercury in Virgo is highlighted by this eclipse. We also see that this eclipse happened opposite Neptune. Wow, that speaks very powerfully to the press, the media, the news, to gossip, to rumor. Mercury, the press, gossip. Neptune, rumor. Neptune in Pisces, rumor. It's also the glamour of celebrity and reporting on the glamour of celebrity, and press feeding the hunger of the public for these stories about Harry's love life, which has been a pattern with other relationships. He's had a difficult relationship, it's fair to say, with the media, as he was very recently sued the media certain newspaper groups in the UK. I think some of the cases might be ongoing for press intrusion. He's actually blamed some of the former romantic relationships before he met Meghan Markle as breaking down because of press intrusion. It became too intense. So you can see that relationship with the media, that tittle tattle of stories there coming out. So this is another thing. This is what set in motion a lot of the difficulties that, as their relationship progressed, led to him stepping down as an official royal and moving away from the UK for good. At this time, however, the stories about him and Meghan were very positive, but that was to change. So again, this second eclipse, about 6 or so months after the March eclipse, also seeds some things. This relationship between the media and himself and his who was the lady who was to become his wife. You can see here in the 11th house, he was having a Mars return. So that's very much speaks possibly potentially to his anger at the press outing his relationship with the lady who went on to become his wife, to Meghan. He must have been very angry. I think it was reported that he did actually ask the press to leave them alone so that they could explore their relationship. But there would have been some anger there. It wasn't just coming from his previous romantic relationships, but also how he felt his mother had been treated by the British media in particular. We also see as well, Uranus is in the 11th house of his chart, and we see transiting Saturn, almost exactly conjunct his natal Uranus. Saturn Uranus always presages change, a change to the status quo, but that tension between the old and the new. So this set up the tension between his old traditional authoritarian life, where it was all about the family line and how he was in line for the throne. I mean, he's still in line for the throne. He's fifth in line after his brother William and William's 5 children. But as I say, no longer part of the firm. The royal family was very much, so very much. They say there's the royal family, British royal family, is two things. It's a family, just like any other family, and you've got the authoritarian father figure, the Saturnian father figure, symbolism there, but also the firm, the institution of the royal family as well. So what was to transpire later on was that tension between the firm, the family, and Harry's need for freedom, for doing his own thing, for going off in a different direction, for also rebellion. He was known as a little bit of a rebel as well in his younger years. So you can see all these things. Many of you will know this story of what happened, but these eclipses, along with the transits that go with them, set up the story, set it up. So let's have a look at the next one. Here we go. Oh, one thing I don't think I said when I looked at the 9th of March chart, which started the relationship. So you've got that solar eclipse there. And I mean, it works for this 1st of September chart as well. The sun and the moon, that coming together of the masculine and the feminine, traditionally about relationship, that both of those planets, or lights, as we might call them, luminaries as we call the sun and moon, they're not literally planets, both rule his 7th house of relationships and marriage. The moon is on the cusp, the Cancer is on the cusp of the 7th house of marriage, which is about the moon, ruled by the moon, and then Leo is intercepted in the 7th house in this chart setup, which is the Placidus house scheme. The sun rules Leo. So you can see that it's powerful lunations of the sun and the moon, the full moon, and we're going to look at in a minute. And the new moon here is the start of a relationship that might have led to, but did actually lead to marriage. So the 16th of September here. So we looked at the 1st of September. We looked at that when it was outed. Now, this is a really, really important eclipse for Harry. It happened just the day after his birthday. Now, any eclipse that falls on your birthday will be on your sun, or very near your birthday will be conjunct your sun within a day or two of your birthday being your sun. These can be, for many of you, for many of us, if that happens, life changing. It can be very life changing. And it was for him. It was a transformative eclipse. I'm going to be looking at this chart. I mentioned when we're looking at triggers, when things come onto the eclipses, when things transiting things in the future move onto the eclipse points, they act as triggers and they can trigger events that relate back to the original eclipse. So we'll see from the 16th of September 2016 eclipse, it is reflected in things that happened in September, in March through September, things that happened in 2016, even as late as 2023. So this, particularly this 16th of September eclipse, life-changing, happened very close to his birthday, very closely conjunct his sun there. Now you'll see, and I've mentioned it before, that on this eclipse, 16th of September, I noted also for the March and the 1st of September eclipses that Pluto very close to his ascendant and moving through his first house here. You'll see it's going backwards. Come the 16th of September, it's even closer to his ascendant, very closely conjunct his ascendant. We talked already about that being about a change of identity. In the eclipse chart, as I said, just like the other charts, the eclipse chart is on the outside of this one. Harry's chart is in the middle. We can see that in the eclipse chart itself, Pluto is exactly conjunct for London, which is where he was living at the time. The Pluto was exactly conjunct the midheaven, and it's on his ascendant. So not only that sense of a change of identity, but also a change of status that was to come, a change of status in terms of his whole life. I've already talked about how he had to resign. He made the decision to move away from the UK to live in America with his American wife, and he was no longer an official working member of the royal family, still retaining his royal title as Prince Harry, still part of the royal family, but not an official working royal. So change of identity, a change of, that's profound, isn't it? Pluto here going over the ascendant through the first house, real change of identity. That doesn't come without trauma, without pain, without shedding of skin. You know, it's Pluto's process is never easy. It's a massive healing journey, and this really presages a massive healing journey with him, in which he took back his own narrative. Already talked about the press, when the eclipse, when the press outed his relationship in the early days with Meghan. You can see here on this eclipse, you can see that Mercury is conjunct the sun. So again, it talks about the narrative, the stories that were told. And you see that there, sun conjunct Mercury in the eclipse chart there. And that eclipse obviously on his sun. Sun and moon very close to his sun, because it happened literally the day after his birthday. His birthday is 15th of September. Transformative. So we'll see how that worked out. Let's look at the next chart. So we're looking again on the far outside wheel is the chart for the 16th of September 2016 lunar eclipse that I've just spoken about, that happened just after his birthday in 2016. That's on the outside. Then his natal chart, as ever, is in the middle, and the chart in the center, and then the middle chart, the second chart as you're moving outwards from the center, is the chart for the interview that Meghan and Harry did with Oprah Winfrey, 7th of March 2021, in which they reclaimed the narrative for themselves. You can see here on the chart for the interview that the Sun was conjunct Neptune, and that Sun Neptune opposes the Sun Mercury in that 2016 eclipse chart. So you can see all the issues we've been talking about, the media, the celebrity. It was a huge event. I mean, it was a worldwide event. It was obviously it was um, broadcast in the US first of all, but it was sold. The rights to broadcast it was sold all over the world. It appeared in the UK the day after. The chart for the broadcast is from the original broadcast in America. So you can see those triggers, you can see the links, the things that were set in motion when Harry lost the narrative to the media, because by this point in time they were married. Things had gone sour for them in the press. It was alleged that things went sour for the couple with his family, with the rest of the royal family, and they ended up, as I say, moving away from the US, and he stepped down as a working royal. And this was their attempt to take back the narrative, to tell their own story. And you can see there that Mercury, Neptune, Sun, Mercury, Neptune, Sun. Interesting, isn't it? Interesting. Perhaps they felt the disappointment and disillusionment of that family life. You can see here as well lots of other things in this chart, but I'm going to move on because I don't want to keep this video for too long. Just to mention that Pluto is still, when the interview with Oprah took place, Pluto, transiting Pluto, is at 26 degrees of Capricorn. It's moved on, but it's very slow. So it's years and years, Pluto in his first house. So it's a massive transformation. Another thing to notice as well, as I said, that Pluto is still on his ascendant, not transiting during the Oprah interview, but still triggers that ascendant point when you put the eclipse chart on the outside here again, very close to his ascendant. They talked of lots of trauma. They talked very psychologically. I think they may have even talked about therapy and that kind of thing. So very Plutonic themes. Control and power had a lot to do with it. It was them taking back control as well as taking back the narrative. Mercury in Virgo, Sun in Virgo, taking back the narrative. Just point out something about Harry's chart as well, that he has the ascendant in Capricorn, the moon in Taurus, the sun in Virgo. So the big three are all in earth signs. So this is a young man who is very down to earth, very wants to be very grounded and down to earth, despite that rebellious energy that he had when he was in his youth. Certainly that was how he was reported. That was how it reported him, the fun-loving prince who was a bit of a rebel, gone his own direction, but someone who wants stability, someone who wants to feel grounded. And he found that, it would seem, with his wife, Meghan. Despite what everyone else was saying about her in the media, there were some really, really cruel things, in my opinion, that were said about her, and unfair things, and probably untrue things that were said about her in the British media. I'm not surprised they wanted to run away. So, and just to say as well, going back even further in time, before obviously he met Meghan, I did meet a couple of people who had worked with Harry in a professional capacity, who knew him quite briefly, but had worked with him, and they all said that he was a very down-to-earth person, particularly for a royal, also warm and charming as well. So that's just sort of anecdotal evidence into some of his character, but also up for a fight, because as we know, the legal challenges that he went on. We watched the news recently. He was given a settlement by news group newspapers. They settled and gave him an unprecedented apology, and they didn't say how much they paid him as compensation to settle, but it was rumoured to be £10 million or more, and an apology for the press intrusion and for the things that they said and the way they gathered information and reported about about him and his relationships. So there's a fight in him there. You can see that Mars there in the 11th house in Sagittarius, the law, justice, and the law, very important to him, justice and the law, taking a huge, massive publisher to court. There you have that. There you have that Mars there in the 11th house. And we look back on that chart there for the 1st of September when the press outed his relationship with Meghan. He was having that Mars return. Interesting, isn't it? How all these, you look at all these charts running over time, you see all these links. I'm seeing more links as I'm actually relaying it to you here. I hope this is interesting. I hope this is giving you a really good idea of how these can work, these eclipse degrees can work, but also, as I've already said, it's in conjunction with the other transits as well. Nothing happens on its own. There's always my teacher, my first teacher, Sue Tompkinson, always said, look for the double whammy. You know, if something's happening, if it's going to happen, look for the double whammy, i.e. things symbolically written in the chart in more than one way. So the next chart, again, we're looking at the 16th of September chart, excuse me. Again, we're looking at the 16th of September lunar eclipse, that really important eclipse to do with news, the media, reporting, publishing. We've established because of that Mercury there, because of that Mercury Neptune there. And that's the very outer wheel. As always, his chart, Harry's chart, is in the middle, the center. I keep saying middle, I mean center. For clarity, his chart's always in the center. And then the middle wheel, the second wheel, as you come out from the center, is the chart for the publication of his autobiography, Spare. So you can see, interestingly, the first thing that catches my eye is that Mercury, transiting Mercury on the day that Spare was published, is conjunct his ascendant and it's conjunct that Pluto. Again, taking back control of the narrative, that theme. This is where he really took back control of the narrative. He did the book and he did extensive interviews talking about his book. He talked about his mental health. He talked about, he has a long history of actually talking about mental health actually and supporting mental health charities, etc., and trying to do what he can to support mental health interventions. You can really see that there, mental health and trauma, family trauma, trauma from the past. That was a huge theme in the book there. And again, that Mercury there, both retrograde, he's talking about the past, conjunct the sun as well. He's talking about the past, he's talking about his family, he's talking about his father. Really interesting stuff. When he published that book, Mercury is, as I say, it's retrograde here. So it's going very slowly. And it's retrograde, it's going very slowly. So it has a much more powerful impact. So that's the main thing there. And then of course we pick up as well on all the 16th of September 2026. Those themes running through that theme there, that Mercury from the eclipse, still conjunct his sun, because obviously that hasn't moved on. But you'll also see as well, and I haven't put a circle around this, you'll also see that Neptune, transiting Neptune during this period was opposite his sun. So that's interesting, isn't it? There's this Neptunian thing there, this kind of, this celebrity glamour around Harry, and the controversy as well, the controversy of some of the things he said about his family. And you can see that quite clearly when you look at Uranus, transiting Uranus in the middle chart, which is a chart for the publication in January 2023 of his autobiography, Spare. That transiting Uranus is on his IC, about his roots and his family, making controversial remarks, writing a controversial book about his family life. And it's opposite his natal Saturn there. And that Saturn Uranus we've already talked about. It's the new and the unconventional, the surprising and the shocking. It was shocking, some of the things that he wrote in the book. Opposite the Saturnian tradition. patriarchal Saturnian tradition there. So that's really interesting. And then this is a different solar eclipse here. This is a solar eclipse for 25th of October 2022. This is on the outside of the chart. I put that eclipse on the outside of this chart here. So that would have been just a few months before it was published. The book Spare was published in 2023. So you can imagine the publication, the book was done, it was edited, it was ready for print, it was, it was ready to go pretty much, apart from the release date. So we're in process here. This book is coming. But I've already looked at this one here, that 2016 chart, but this is a much closer, very close eclipse to the publication of the book Spare, which says a lot. So once again, we have Harry's chart in the center of this three wheel. And then the middle wheel is once again the 10th of January 2023 when the book was published, and then that solar eclipse on the outside. So here we can see this solar eclipse falls in Scorpio in his 9th house, the house of publishing, the house of international relations, the house of wanting to get justice done. The eclipse is conjunct Venus, Venus in Scorpio, perhaps revenge even, and it's conjunct Pluto in his chart. So again, there's a real catharsis. There's a feeling that this publication of this book was a real genuine catharsis for Harry, and he spoke a lot about it as well. And then again, we see, we've already talked about this, we see that Uranus, transiting Uranus on the eclipse and on the day of the publication, of course, both, is on his IC. So really shaking things up when it comes to speaking about his family and his roots and all of that. So that concludes really this case study. I hope you can see how this eclipse that was very close to Spare, the book being published, speaks to the publishing of the book, how controversial it was, Uranus, how deep it went and how deep it seeped in, how popular it was as well. You've got that solar eclipse in Scorpio conjunct his Pluto. It was a healing journey for him, that healing journey that we've been seeing throughout, that healing journey, that journey of him taking back the narrative for himself. Very controversial, but it was an incredibly popular book. I think it was the bestseller of that year, if not of several years. It did very well. So let's have a look now at, let's go into 2025 and we look at the degrees for the eclipses of 2025. The first one happening is on the 14th of March. It's a total lunar eclipse that falls at 24 degrees of Virgo. So if you are looking at whether this eclipse touches your chart in any way, you'd look at Virgo and Pisces primarily. What in your chart is at Virgo 24? So I say 20, 22, 23 to 24, 25, 26 of Virgo and Pisces. Now have a look at your chart. If you've got anything at those degrees, then you will have something that touches, you'll have this eclipse will be touching your chart. I've also noted here some transiting planets for you to look out for. So when you're looking for potentially, say, if you're looking at, say if you have, I don't know, the sun at 24 degrees of Virgo in your chart, which I think is round about Harry's sun, isn't it? If you have the sun at 24 degrees of Virgo in your chart, here are some sort of trigger points. So Venus will be hitting 24 degrees of Pisces, the opposite sign to Virgo. These dates here in January, already gone, because we can look backwards as well. And in April, coming up, April the 9th to the 17th, this is important because Venus will be retrograde. That RX means it's retrograde, be retrograde at that time. So Venus is going more slowly, so it will have more of an impact. So again, if you've got something around sort of 2021 to 26 of Virgo or Pisces, watch out for things that might happen to do with relationships, money, values, that kind of thing, all the Venusian things, negotiations, even peace, appeasements, if we're looking at world events. 9th of April to the 17th of April. And then in late May, early June as well, Venus will be returning to that point, that 24 Pisces. Saturn as well, 24 Pisces, between the 23rd of March and the 6th of April 2025. Again, that's another trigger point to look out for in world events, also in your chart. I'm going to be looking at the chart in a minute. We're going to have a quick look at the chart for the 14th of March lunar eclipse because it's the one that's coming up. That's the last chart I'm going to look at today. I'll be looking at the charts for the other eclipses in future videos because I don't want to keep this too long. But here's some important sort of, hopefully some interesting and important, if you are a working astrologer or astrology student, or, you've been working with astrology for a while, you can look up these degrees. So on 29th of March, there's another eclipse, a partial solar eclipse at 9 degrees of Aries. So we've got Saturn at 9 degrees of Aries between the 29th of April and the 9th of May this year, 22nd of October and the 6th of November next year, and the 14th to 29th of January 2027. So you can see, again, more trigger points. If you want to learn a little bit about Saturn going into Aries, you can look at my previous video that I've already mentioned at the top of this video. Ceres comes to 9 degrees of Aries in June, October this year, and January to January 2026 as well. You can always, if you want to write down these actual full dates, you can just pause this video and make a note of them or come back and look at them later. And then the next lot of eclipses in 2025, the 7th of September, we have a total lunar eclipse at 15 in Pisces. Then we have Mars at 15 in Pisces, 21st to 23rd of March 2026. So you'll see a September chart this year will be triggered by Mars in March of next year. That's how it works. Let me just move up my little face here. There you go. Then the last one of this year is the 21st of September, a solar eclipse at 29 degrees Virgo, Saros cycle 9S. Don't worry about that. I should have taken that out. That's very technical. But don't worry about that. Unless you are, you're an experienced astrologer, you can look up Saros cycles. It basically looks through the eclipses, common themes through the ages for eclipses. This 21st of September, it's really intense. 29 degrees of Virgo. So anything from 26, 27 Virgo to sort of 1-2 degrees of Libra will be touching your chart, or the chart of, if you're looking at charts for nations and organizations and events, etc. The Saturn at 29 will be at 29 in Pisces on these dates, 14 to 26 of May this year, 1st to 15th of September this year during its retrograde, and then 3rd to the 15th of February next year. And Neptune at 29 Pisces, again, I speak about Neptune at 29 Pisces in my earlier video. It'll be at those degrees, that degree, pretty much all of March 2025. So that's before this actual eclipse. And we can still look back. On eclipses, look back. Oh, what happened that might be relevant to what happened during the eclipse or after the eclipse. So 22nd of October, 2025 to the 27th of Jan 2026. So a very long period it goes at 29 degrees. So before I wrap up, let's look at the total lunar eclipse on 14th of March this year, the one that's coming up. I'm recording this towards the end of February. 1 second. Thank you. You'll see here that it's a lunar eclipse at 24, 23, 56, i.e. round it up to 24 degrees of Virgo for the moon and Pisces for the sun. You've got Saturn and Neptune there as well. So really the focus is on the Virgo Pisces axis. It's about the finding the balance between where to control things, sort of that Saturnian energy, and where to just let things go, that Piscean and Neptunian energy. Virgo can be a very controlling sign as well. Where to, where you might need to find the balance between letting go of something, releasing something, or of holding on, or of to take action to sort of be more proactive. Again, finding that balance and knowing the difference as well. Tension between chaos and order. That whole cliche of control what you can, but don't try and control what you can't control. That's the essence, I think, of this. Thinking versus feeling. Mercury rules Virgo. It's a mercurial, analytical sign, whereas Pisces is more intuitive, psychic even. So the analytical mind, thinking versus feeling, the analytical mind versus the intuitive mind, the emotions and the psychic self versus the rational, logical self. The small details as well, Virgo versus the bigger picture. And those are some things, some themes to think about. You also see here so much here in Pisces, but also in Aries, and then you've got the Mars and the Jupiter and the Pluto sort of dotted about as well. So that'd be interesting to watch these themes of power, control, transformation, things changing. Also, defense. Mars seems to have been in Cancer for a long time. It's had its retrograde period. At this point, it's going forwards again, and eventually, it's going to be making its final opposition when it goes into Leo to Pluto. To watch that as well. But at the moment, this eclipse is that defensive position. We're certainly seeing a lot of talk about defense and defense spending and defensiveness in the world in terms of trying to shore up a country's defences, which goes into Mars. And then you've got Jupiter there as well, pretty much on its own. Looks like it's kind of on its own as well. Looks like it's pretty much unaspected in this chart as well. Jupiter. There's going to be a lot of words, but will they have any real true meaning? Will they really have any true impact? Lots of talk and lots of gossip. So to watch out where you get your news from and what you believe. So that is for this year. I hope the case study was interesting. I tried to choose someone who, a random, who everyone would know and would all would know the story. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you watching this. Thank you so much to all the new subscribers. If you've not, and for the early subscribers as well, of course, that are stuck with this. I really hope you have a great March and a great rest of 2025, and I'll be back soon with more videos. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.